I came across a remarkable story this week that's been circulated by a few small-scale news outlets. It reads, a radio presenter in Norfolk has been suspended by his station for playing a Christmas song in October. Rob Chandler of Broadland Radio was not on the airwaves this morning for his regular show following his suspension for the incident on Friday. The DJ had taken a poll from listeners after somebody dared him to play a Christmas song. If I get 5 different people to text ho ho ho, I'll play a Christmas song, Mr. Chandler said. He then proceeded to play Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You, for which he's been reprimanded. Bob Norman, who runs the station, said there was genuine shock and horror when he played the song. It goes against what we're trying to do. Listeners have been writing into us asking to bring Rob back. It's understood that Mr. Chandler will be back on the radio on Tuesday. There you go. Poor old Rob Chandler suspended. His radio career in ruins. Well, not really. It was just a publicity/marketing stunt by the guys at Broadland Radio, and it worked. I've seen this story shared all over my favourite radio and social media pages, and it's really had people talking. I suspect Rob took a day off, which looked to listeners like a suspension. The story was circulated to get some press, and he returned the next day triumphant. I saw loads of people moaning about this little stunt, but I think it's great, and of course harmless. Many others recalled doing the exact same thing at some point in their radio careers to garner publicity. It got me thinking about some other radio station publicity stunts that were a bit more outrageous, such as in April 1991, when a radio station in St. Louis, Missouri was fined $25,000 for broadcasting a mock nuclear attack on the US. Harsh? Not really, as it was just after the Gulf War began. A classic case of a radio prank backfiring. This brought to mind another couple of stories in which radio publicity stunts have well and truly backfired. Regulars at a Wolverhampton pub and diners at a fast food restaurant were left mystified after a couple walked in and started handing out £10 notes without explanation in November 1997. The cash was doled out at the Varsity in Princess Square and McDonald's in Penn Road as a publicity stunt for Wolverhampton's new radio station, the Wolf 107.7, but the problem was the money was given out to people without explanation. They said I have a tenner for you and walked off without mentioning the station. It was later revealed that the couple were promotions staff from the station, which admitted its stunt had backfired. Perhaps news of the shambles brought in a few new listeners, however. I think the idea was stolen by the Wolf's programme director Tim Page after a similar stunt in July 1997. There was a mystery woman seen giving away fivers in Gloucester and Cheltenham pubs. It remained a mystery until a local radio station admitted they organised the cash handouts as a publicity stunt. After the lady began giving away the money, theories circulated about her motives, which included the possibility that she'd won the lottery, was a divorcee spending her ex-husband's money, or was giving away cash that had been forged or stolen. However, 7 Sound Radio admitted the woman was their presenter, Emma Reed. It was a stunt to get people talking, and it worked. Armed with £1,000 in crisp new £5 notes, Emma toured 10 pubs in Gloucester and Cheltenham. I followed Emma into one pub for security reasons, and people were saying, "There's that girl in the paper," as soon as they saw her, said programme controller Andy Westgate. 7 Sound placed an advertisement in the Citizen to trace the mystery woman, and Emma later owned up to the stunt on air. Some radio stunts have gathered national news, such as a call to Tony Blair. In January 1998, Steve Penk, who was on London-based Capital Radio, spoke to Prime Minister Tony Blair on his show. Pretending to be the Tory leader William Hague, Steve actually got through to Blair at Downing Street and offered to give him a copy of a share exercise video. Blair knew straight away that it was a hoax call because Penk had called him Tony. William Hague never called him Tony, he called him Prime Minister. Tara Barron, a spokeswoman for the station, said the Prime Minister realised straight away that it was a prank. "We're not sorry for going to the highest echelons of the state to play a joke." That was quite an impressive achievement by Steve Penk, but it was nothing compared to Canadian DJ Pierre Brassard's 17-minute conversation with Queen Elizabeth II. He impersonated the then Canadian Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. Buckingham Palace ruled out any major inquiry into the embarrassing hoax, but said it would look into procedures for handling incoming calls. "People have to use their common sense," a palace spokesperson said. "If there has been a confidence trick played on an institution, common sense dictates you look carefully again at your procedures." He dismissed the incident, in which the Queen was drawn into commenting on a major Canadian controversy, as frivolous. Her unwitting conversation with Brassard on the radio station in Montreal was about the possibility that Quebec province would vote for independence. Some stunts really get listeners angry, especially when they involve animals. Bird lovers protested in November 1989 after Radio Nottingham apparently cooked a budgie in the studio, popping a cherry on its beak as a finishing touch. The fuss started after a bird expert told Radio Nottingham that budgerigar was the Aborigine word for good to eat. DJ Jeff Owen claimed to call in a leading chef who cooked a small bird on the spot. He was quick to let local news know that it wasn't a budgie as listeners feared, but was in fact a quail. A harmless prank in the end, and a funny continuation in the media by Jeff Owen. GWR-FM ran into trouble with the RSPCA for a scheme involving giving away goldfish in May 1997. Staff from the station drove round Bristol giving out goldfish in plastic bags. They wisely sought the advice of the RSPCA before launching the promotion, but unwisely then decided to ignore the advice to drop the promotion when it was given. They gave away hundreds of fish, causing both the fish and many of the recipients a great deal of distress. GWR-FM station manager Robin Haig, rejecting both the RSPCA's advice and criticism, replied that the society should concentrate on cruelty to dogs, cats and horses. So why seek the advice in the first place? If the purpose of the exercise was good publicity with their listeners, then judging by the complaints the station and the RSPCA received, it seems the stunt backfired. Some radio stunts have caused damage. A public library was left in a right mess in April 1994 when a local station in Dallas, Texas announced it had hidden 5 $10 bills in the fiction book section and urged listeners to go in search of the cash. More than 500 people stampeded through the Fort Worth Central Library, and more than 3,000 books were thrown across the floor by frenzied listeners. People started climbing the bookshelves. They started climbing on each other, and books became missiles, ending up ripped or destroyed. In February 1999, Metro breakfast DJ Tony Horn rang a woman in Australia and offered her £1 million to say an offensive word on air by giving her crude clues. The woman said it was too disgusting and she refused to say the word, and Horn was branded disgraceful by angry listeners after the telephone prank. Metro programme director Sean Morley said, "Tony Horn is very sorry if any listener has been offended by his £1 million call today. There was no intention to offend anyone." Regular listeners to his programme will know that he asks funny questions every week, and we have hundreds of calls a week from listeners who love this element of the show. Tony did forewarn the audience and invited them to either turn the radio down or switch to sister station Magic 1152 if they thought they may be offended. Some stunts were designed to create a bit of shock factor to promote a station, such as the on-air row heard by listeners of South Shropshire-based radio station Radio Sunshine 855 in August 1993. Listeners to the morning show heard DJ James Harding become involved in a heated argument with a caller. He then locked himself in the Ludlow radio station and refused to cooperate with senior members of staff called in to defuse the situation. The DJ was eventually frogmarked from the studios, still raging at his listeners and threatening to resign, while another DJ continued the show, but bosses later revealed that the row was a stunt to mimic Dave Lee Travis's shock departure from Radio 1 10 days prior. Tongue-in-cheek, Managing Director Graham Simmons said, "We have a very clearly defined code of practice that Harding breaks on a weekly basis. Let's just say his job is hanging in the balance, and if Dave Lee Travis would like to step in, we'd be delighted to hear from him. We may of course be inundated by letters from Harding's public demanding his reinstatement, but that seems a little unlikely, as we understand his fan is currently on holiday in Alicante." This prank served its purpose as a light-hearted and fun way to get listeners to tune in, but they don't always go to plan. In April 1987, angry motorists were the target of Metro DJ Steve Coleman. He got a little more than he bargained for when he broadcast an April Fool's Day spoof story. He told listeners to his early morning show that new area code registration letters, including DM for Durham and SD for Sunderland, were being introduced for North East cars. The letters could be obtained free from garages, but there would be a £25 fine for any car owner who didn't get their coding by the end of the day. Metro's newsroom staff decided to continue the spoof by including an item on the coding in their regional news bulletins. As a result, garages all over the region were besieged as car owners began to complain to garage attendants who said they knew nothing about the coding scheme. Garage owners then jammed the switchboard at the radio station with complaints. These were joined by representatives of the AA, RAC and the police. A repentant Steve Coleman said he was sorry for any confusion or distress caused. And finally, bosses at Metro FM were in hot water once again in June 1999, when the station projected a 100-foot laser logo of its Friday Night Kiss programme onto Durham Cathedral as part of a series of stunts using the image beamed onto northeast landmarks while the programme was on air. The station hadn't asked permission to use the cathedral in the stunt, but later made up with officials after an unholy row broke out. They apologised to the cathedral's dean and chapter and offered to make a cash donation after officials complained. Of course, there's hundreds of stories like this, but this is just a few I had in the Ringway Manchester vault. Let us know in the comments if you have any more.